Hello, hello. This is Kim Ades from Frame of Mind Coaching, and you have just joined the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast. Today, we turn the tables, and I have a good friend, a friend of mine that I met many, many years ago as we were both volunteers for a hospital organization, and he is a super interesting character, but he is coming to interview me today. Let me introduce you to Jarrod Saltzman. Jarrod, welcome.
Thanks, Kim. It's great to be here. I appreciate your time today.
So you are a career entrepreneur and an aspiring coach.
Yes, it's actually interesting how my world has come full circle since meeting you. I guess it was 15 years ago, I want to say around 2004, 2005, when we were working for the hospital. And I'm not surprised 15 years later that you're a professional coach managing your own business of professional coaches and serving your clients. It's not surprising now that I've learned what I've learned.
I want to give everybody a little bit of a sense for how we met and what that context was. So you were the chair of the golf tournament for this hospital association. And I was like the person who kind of just came in to do whatever I could to help. And it turned out that my job was selling raffle tickets. And I had like a secret strategy for selling as many raffle tickets as I could. And I think I
Do you want to share that strategy?
My strategy was this, like I think the tickets were something like $5 each, something like that. And so I would say you could buy, you could buy 3 for 10 or, people would say, how much are the tickets? I would say, well, they're 3 for $10. Shall we start you off with 6? So that they wouldn't have a choice. They couldn't just buy one, right? Like that wasn't even on the table. And a lot of people bought a lot of tickets. They just say, okay. So it was just a kind of like everybody's buying tickets. Have you purchased yours yet? Right?
Well,
so it was that idea. Yeah.
What's really interesting about that is when I stepped out of my comfort zone as an entrepreneur and started this journey on personal growth, one of the conferences that I joined the speaker was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Robert Cialdini. And he talks about something called suasion. And it really is exactly what you did in that instant. You basically set up an idea and you made people aware of the idea before they were even considering accepting it. So what you were doing is people were looking at the options of what they could buy, and you immediately went right off the chart. You raised the bar and you set an expectation that people weren't even ready to listen to yet. And that was, it was a shock at first, but when they started thinking about it, they started to come around to the idea that you had presented to them, and you had an unbelievable closing rate. You closed probably in the neighborhood of 80 to 85% with your method. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, and I didn't even know what I was really doing. I was just extremely enthusiastic, and I really, really wanted to sell those raffle tickets. And for me, like that passion, that enthusiasm, I went for a good cause. So I was happy to do it. But so here we are today. You're an aspiring coach, and we kind of had a conversation, and we agreed, like, okay, let's turn the tables. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. You were actually the last person that I met with in person before the stay-at-home orders and this whole coronavirus thing kicked in. So I'm glad that we reconnected, and I wanted to start off with a couple of softball questions to get you comfortable. But for some people that are joining this podcast for the first time or seeing me for the first time, don't know really too much about coaching, combine your answer with sort of what is coaching and who needs coaching and why.
So there are lots of different forms of coaching, right? So what is coaching is a really, really broad question. So there are all kinds of coaches out there. There are coaches that help you with a specific task or a specific goal. For example, there are marketing coaches, there are speaking coaches, there are baseball coaches that help you perform in a certain area. What we do is a little bit different. What we do is we like to work with leaders. So who are we coaching? People who are typically very highly driven, people who do have large goals they want to achieve, people who want to make a positive difference in the world, people who want to live extraordinary lives and experience everything, and people who tend to be frustrated. And what we do is we look at how their thinking impacts their outcomes. And we have a process we use in order to get to their thinking and understand how they're wired, what they believe to be true, how they perceive things, how their past experiences really affect who they are today. So what we're interested in doing when we look at coaching someone is helping them live a life that they want to live with greater ease, peace, exhilaration, joy, by looking at their thinking and helping them tweak their thinking a little bit so that they can reach their goals far more easily.
Well, it was George Bernard Shaw that once said 2% of the people think, 3% of the people think that they think, and 95% of the people would rather die than think. So tell me how you're able to start with getting in tune to people's thinking so that you can pull it out of them and get them to start changing their thinking.
Okay, well, let's go back, right? So the premise is this, is that the way you think has the most profound impact on your outcomes than any other factor, right? So your thinking leads you to your outcomes. Why? Because the thoughts you think over and over again form your beliefs. Your beliefs lead to your expectations drive your behaviors, and then you get your outcomes. So we always want to start with thoughts. So the question is, how do we get to our clients' thoughts? We do it in two ways. Number one is we have phone calls on a weekly basis. And one of the things we do is we really want to bring a greater level of awareness to our clients about how they think, the stories they tell, the words they use, the places where they get triggered emotionally, and the things that create excitement for them, but also the things that create frustration for them. And so when we have our calls, we record every call and we ask our clients to listen to the recording so that they can start to become observers of how they show up and how they sound and what they're saying. The second thing we do is we ask our clients to journal in a private and secure online journal every single day. At the beginning of the week, they get a journaling question or a prompt, and they start journaling. And every journal goes back to their coach, who then reads and responds to the journal. But what is inside the journal? Why is journaling such an important component of our coaching? It's because when somebody's writing down their thoughts, as a coach, I am able to pick up patterns of belief, patterns of perspective. I'm able to understand how someone is wired, and I'm able to ask more and more questions that drill deeper and deeper into core issues. So this kind of coaching is quite profound, and it's designed to really pull out the way a person sees the world and help them decide, make clear decisions about whether that view of the world is consistent with their desired outcomes or the goals they want to achieve. Very often we find that there's a misalignment between the goals you say you have and the way you see the world, what you believe to be true. And what we want to do is we want to create alignment.
So how do you do that? I mean, how do you really pull it out? Like I mean, let's say I'm one of your coaching clients and I'm having a real hard time getting in tune with what I really want. You know, how do you pull it out of me so that I can get really, really crystal clear on what the type of life is that I want to lead?
So a lot of times I ask people that question, what is it that you really, really want? And they have trouble figuring it out. And my philosophy on that is that you actually know what you really want, but you're really not ready to claim it. You're really not ready to wrap your arms around it. And the reason for that is because you have a set of beliefs that say that's not possible. I can't have that. I don't deserve it. I'm not smart enough, experienced enough, old enough, whatever it is, tall enough, good looking enough, whatever it is, right? I can't have it. So therefore, that's not even in my purview. And I can't write it down, or I can't claim that that's what I want. So that's what we want to address. We want to really dig under the beliefs that inform how a person sees the world and how a person sees themselves. So how do we do that? We start off very simply, right? We ask you to journal. What's going on in your life today, and how do you feel about it? So you're a dad, you might say, yes, it's okay. You're a dad, you might say, you know, my daughter is being very difficult. Here's what happened. And then I might ask more questions. So how did you react? How did you feel about that? How often does that happen? What were you like as a kid? And on and on and on and on. And what I'm doing is I'm piecing together your beliefs about parenthood, about how kids should behave, and connecting that to leadership and how people should operate in the world. And through that process, I'm identifying the beliefs, your core beliefs from where you operate.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so how do you get your positive message out to potential clients? How do you bring clients into your frame of mind coaching practice? And how do you determine if the client is a good fit for a specific coach?
Yeah. So how do people find us is really your question. Well, we get a lot of referrals from our past clients who have had amazing experiences with us. That's definitely one way. Another way is that people hear me speak somewhere, either on this podcast. I'm a guest on many, many podcasts. Prior to COVID, I was traveling all over the place doing speaking events. Now I'm doing virtual speaking events. And so people hear me speak. And it's not just what I have to say, it's the questions that I ask them that cause them to think about themselves, that cause them to say, hey, like, I don't have an answer to that. Or, man, I got trapped in that question. That stumped me. And I really want help in figuring out what that answer is. I also have like a little bit of a different approach, right? So they want
that's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, there are a lot of coaching certifications out there. There are a lot of professional coaches out there. You know, I'm a certified member of the John Maxwell team. He has his own philosophies and his own systems. There's countless numbers of coaches out there. What should people look for when they're looking to hire their first professional coach to help them in their own lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, for me, I give you a series of criteria when you're looking for a coach. So number one, are they experienced? Number two, do they have raving fans? Like, do they have great testimonials? Do people love their work? Number three, what are the results that they can deliver? Number four, what is the process they use? Do they have a process? Or do they just say, let's just talk once a week or once every 2 weeks? Like, is there a specific process? And what is the foundation of that process? I don't know what number I'm on. Number five. Number five, one of the very important things that I feel is critical to coaching is, what is the process by which a coach gets to know you? What are they using? Is it just phone calls? How do they collect data from you to really understand who you are, what's important to you, what you value? How do they collect information from you? Is it through assessments? The way we do it is through daily journaling. And so all those pieces are important. And then the last and most important thing is, do you connect with this person? Like, do you feel the chemistry? Do you feel like they're listening properly? Do you feel like they get you? If not, that's, you know.
If not, keep going. Sorry,
If
I
not,
cut you off.
then that's it. Like, I mean, that's the first and most important component is that one. You have to connect.
So you've been doing this now, frame of mind coaching, for how long? 10 years? 12 years?
16 years.
16 years? My apologies. And tell us about your coach. How many coaches have you had in your life? And, you know, do you change coaches often? How long should somebody stay with a coach? What is the general rule there?
I think it's different. Like, I have a series of coaches. I've had in the past several business coaches, one that I have consistently, one that I go back to every once in a while when I have a problem that I need to solve, and I just kind of bring him in for, you know, a half a day. I have had personal coaches. I've had a series of coaches. I'm a big believer in coaching, both for personal reasons, but also for professional reasons. Like, we just hired a coach to help us figure out whether or not, like, how to, you know, increase our number of speaking engagements, especially now that we cannot travel. So it's always hiring coaches.
Interesting that you talk about not being able to travel. What has been the biggest surprise for you working in this new normal? I mean, you're sitting at home in your Zoom room. I'm sitting in my Zoom room. What has been the biggest surprise for you since this pandemic has started with respect to your coaching career?
Yeah. So for me, again, I was traveling all the time. Like, you know, every week, every 2 weeks, I was on the road for a speaking engagement or something. And I found that I was actually quite tired. I was exhausted. Yeah. And so what was really surprising is I needed this kind of outside source, this outside event take place to give me permission to just stop. And that's pretty bad, like I should know better. But the surprise was how okay I am to not be on the road, how okay I am to figure out how to grow a business without needing to be on the road every week, every 2 weeks. It was like, somebody granted me permission to just get off the treadmill. And, it's a bit sad that I needed that event to take place, but that's what happened.
Okay. And when it comes to breakthrough transformations with your clients or impact, do you find any tangible difference in delivering impact to your clients through Zoom versus being in person?
So here's what's interesting. So when I travel, I don't travel to coach, I travel to speak.
To speak,
right?
yes.
So all of our coaching has been done virtually and not even through Zoom. We do it all through a conference line. And the reason being is that, I don't know about you right now, but it's a little distracting sometimes to be on Zoom. You might be looking at my room, you might be looking at my light, you might be looking at how my headphones are dangling funny. You might be looking at yourself, right? We don't know. But so we don't add the element of visual distraction in our coaching. It's just auditory. And here's what's really, really important is when we hear people on the line, first of all, our ability to pick up on auditory cues is very, very heightened. But the other piece is that when you can't see me as your coach on the other end, your willingness to be much more honest is dramatically increased.
Wow. Why is that? Is there some sort of science behind? Is it just simply because
you feel less vulnerable. You feel like there's nobody judging you on the other end. There's nobody with a facial expression or a reaction, right? That you can see.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and then on the other front, on the speaking front, when I would go out and speak, I would try to make it as interactive as possible, bringing people on stage. So that's not really possible anymore, but I've tried to adapt and make some other interactive components to a presentation so that it's still as interactive as I can make it. Interestingly enough, I've done several virtual presentations recently, and the feedback has been quite positive, actually extraordinarily positive, and I'm a little shocked, to be honest.
Wow, that's amazing. So if we're locked down for another 2 years or so, there's going to be no tangible change to how you approach things. Is that fair to say?
I mean, the tangible approach will be like, what's going to happen to the world? Are people going to look for coaching, or are they going to look for their next meal? That's really the issue.
Well, that is a great question. What are people looking for? What are your clients telling you in a time like this? How do you lead through this crisis? How do you give your clients the necessary elements to help them achieve in their own lives when we're going through something that we've never been through before?
So what we do is we lean on some of the principles that we use for coaching related to how extraordinary leaders think, particularly in times of crisis. And we say, okay, so are you applying these principles, these approaches, these thinking strategies? And given your situation, given these times, let's work on how to apply some really foundational concepts to your current situation. So it requires you to be aware of what they are, and it requires like the willingness to apply it.
All right. I wanted to shift gears for a second and talk about more like the business of coaching. I mean, you run your own firm, you have a number of coaches that work for you and a number of clients that work with your coaches. So how do you balance serving your employees or your coaches versus serving your clients? What's the secret there?
So here's a very interesting thing for everybody to know is that every single one of my coaches started off by being a client.
Really?
So every single one of them came in and said, I'm looking for coaching. And we set them up with coaching, right? They went through the coaching process, the frame of mind coaching process, and they kind of went through it and said, holy smokes, that was pretty amazing. How do I become a coach? And so we started to get that often enough that we created a certification program called the Frame of Mind Certification Program to teach people how to coach using this methodology. Now, interestingly enough, many people have gone through it, but most of them have gone through it so that they can learn to become better leaders in their organizations.
I mean,
So,
that's exactly why I found coaching. I'll be very honest with you. I joined the John Maxwell team 3 years ago to improve my public speaking. In fact, and there's a number of different tracks: speaking, sales, marketing, and coaching. And I did not review any of the coaching track before I became certified. And it was the 1 hour presentation in my certification process from the coach that blew my mind. And I said, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And it's really that transformation, that looking inside, that makes you realize it's the aha moment in your own life that once it comes to light, you want to help others find that inside of them as well. And so what I wanted to ask you was, what are the 3 most important things when it comes to personal development? When you're working with a coach, what are the 3 most important things that you want your clients to take away, whether be during or after their coaching with you is complete?
so I think the first most important thing is that when you look at your life and you look at the things that are creating frustration, anguish, disappointment, all of that, right? If you look at any of those things are not in and of themselves the creator of your negative emotion. Your negative emotion comes from your thinking. That's the first thing, right? Yeah. So the way you think will determine what you achieve and what you don't achieve, but your thinking will also determine how you feel about what's happening in front of you. So an event can take place, it's just an event, but the way we interpret that event will determine how we feel. So the first thing we want to teach and our clients and hand over is this incredible both power and responsibility to take ownership of their thinking and to understand how thoughts work and to understand how emotions work and to understand that those two are tied, and that if they're not feeling well, to look at their thinking and understand what's guiding that negative feeling.
I mean, a lot of people's beliefs and their thinking stems from their childhood. It's been proven that, an event happened when you were a kid and it's been driving your beliefs ever since. And how do you get to that root to start? I mean, yes, the thinking, you have to improve your thinking to improve your results, but your thinking is all begins at the belief system. So how do you start to change? Once you've identified how I see the world, how your client sees the world, that goes into their beliefs. How do you go about actively changing their beliefs or making them aware that their beliefs may not be serving them properly?
So the first thing we do, so just to go back, so the first thing we do is we want to give people responsibility for their thinking. The second thing we want to do is, you're leading me down the right path, is really help them understand how their beliefs drive their actions and then their outcomes. And so when we find a belief that isn't lined up with their goals, for example, I might want to start a business, right? But my belief is, well, I need a lot of money to start a business and I don't have money. Those don't go together, right?
Yep.
They're at odds with one another. So I now, as a coach, need to challenge the belief and the deeper belief, which is I have no access to money. So is that true? And I might even go even a little further to say, like, what was the way that money was handled in your home? How was that dealt with? Did you live with a sense of scarcity or did you live with a sense of abundance? And I might need to go there to rewire their beliefs about access to money and resources, right? So, but what I'm doing as a coach is first finding the belief, and then I'm gently challenging the belief so that they're trading it in for something a little bit more possible. An increasing possibility is what I'm doing.
I mean, you're talking about somebody who grew up with parents who would tell them things like money doesn't grow on trees and you're wasting electricity and you're wasting water. But what is the process behind, I mean, I understand now how you identify that belief, but how do you make it so crystal clear to your client that their beliefs are wrong without basically coming out and saying it? Or do you come out right out and say it?
Well, I don't think there's anything such a thing as a wrong belief. It's just a belief. There
It's
are
just a
beliefs
belief.
that serve you and beliefs that don't serve you. And so what we do is we look at a million other cases where that belief wasn't actually the case. Right? And then we look at, so other cases, well, then we look at cases related to that individual where, that belief doesn't hold up. Right? So we start to poke little holes in the belief, because a belief is a perspective. It's like, I see the world this way. It's kind of like truth, right? There's no real truth. There's just perspective.
Interesting.
Right? So similar to beliefs, a belief is a perspective. And a lot of times, I play this game sometimes with people around me, but let's do it together.
Okay.
Like if you hold your hand up like this, your finger up in front of you, and you close one eye, and then you switch eyes, like just switch eyes. What happens to your finger?
It moves.
But it doesn't, right? You didn't actually move your finger. And so if each eye is seeing something different, which eye is telling the truth?
Interesting.
Right? So if even your own eyes can't tell me what's the truth, then are you sure your beliefs are truth?
Wow. There's a famous quote, and the author of the quote is escaping my mind, but it was basically to emphasize what you were saying. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change.
Right.
And I guess that's the entire coaching process, is helping your client take a seat beside themselves and learn with you about their beliefs and their thinking, and finding the patterns and you'll end up getting to that block. And that's where you get that transformational aha moment. But it's not easy to do. And some of the better coaches are better at it than others. And if I'm a coach looking to improve transformation in my clients, what's some advice that you would give to an aspiring young coach?
So one of the questions that I always want to ask coaches who are not necessarily connected to our company is like, what is the process by which you're really getting to know and build a relationship with your clients? Like, how does that work? Right? And so for me, in my opinion, in order to help a client get to somewhere else, I need to build a very, very strong, solid, trusting, intimate relationship with them. And so for me, the journaling process assists that relationship building, because I'm in contact with them every single day. But normally when you think about coaching or even therapy, you think, well, I have to hold certain boundaries, right? Like there are boundaries in this coach-client relationship. For me, I want to tear down the boundaries so that we are in a relationship that allows us to travel at lightning speed. Because if you don't trust me, you're not going anywhere. And it's that relationship that allows us to travel. So the recommendation is to anybody who's coaching is, what are you doing to build this relationship? What are the structures that support the building of this relationship? What is the frequency of contact? How are you getting to know your client? What are your data points? How do you sound? Are you bold? Are you, all of those things.
Right. So talking about coaching, not so much about what the coach can bring to the client, but what kind of questions should I be asking myself when I'm ready to start looking for a coach to help me with my situation?
I think you need to try out the coach. In other words, you need to have a conversation with the coach. You need to experience what the coach is bringing to you. Is the coach really listening? Is the coach really present? Is the coach asking relevant questions? Is the coach causing you to think? Right? Is the coach bringing something to the experience right here, right now? Right? So you want to feel that out, and you want to walk away saying, did I walk away feeling a little bit expanded? Did that feel like that opened me up a little bit? Did I just grow even just a little bit as a result of that conversation? If yes, that's a good sign. If your feeling is frustration, if your feeling is self-consciousness or anger, it's probably not a good option.
Interesting, because I would argue that frustration and looking inside of myself would be, even if those are negative emotions, would be the first step to choosing a coach, no matter what. I mean, yes, the coach made me think, and I've expanded a little bit, but not all that expansion is good. Maybe I'm angry about some of the things that I figured out about myself through this type of questioning. How do I know if it was just an emotion, an internal emotion on my own, or if it's something that the coach brought out of me? I mean, there's a lot of, you touched on it earlier, baseball coaches, professional sports coaches. There's a lot of coaches out there who drive unbelievable results for their team, but they're not liked. So is it really important to be liked as a coach, or is it more important to deliver the results on that, deliver on the results that your client is looking for?
So I think that there's a distinction between the kind of coach who says, here's what you need to do, just do what I say, and this type of coaching, which is really about introspection. And so, you know, do you come into coaching frustrated? Of course you do, you know, because you want to be somewhere where you're not yet already. But the question is, like, does this coach really see who I am, where I am, and what's happening for me? Does the coach see me? Does the coach hear me? Does the coach understand me? Right? And
I mean, yep. I think that to your point, there are so many coaches, and it is a really wide spectrum of questions that you can ask yourself and ask the coach to see if you're a good fit. Are there any books on coaching that you would recommend if somebody wanted to start with personal growth, an introduction to coaching? Where would somebody start? You know, I know everything, Kim. I don't need a coach. I've done everything in my life on my own. I don't need any extra help. You know, obviously that's not true. So
yeah.
where would one start?
Yeah. So, I mean, the road of self-development is a never-ending road. So definitely there are lots and lots and lots of books out there that you could tap into that could help you do, you know, kind of create a little bit of insight. My recommendation, I mean, I can point you to yet another book, but my recommendation is to, if you're not willing to work with a coach, is to do a little bit of personal reflection, you know, introspection. And I would say to you, grab a journal, grab a piece of paper and a pen, grab, you know, a Word document, and ask yourself some critical questions. And I often encourage people to ask themselves these two critical questions. Question number one is, what do I really, really want more than anything? Again, not what is it that somebody wants from me, what's expected of me, what my spouse wants, what my parents want, what my kids want. What do I truly, deeply want in my heart? And the second question is, so like, what's getting in the way? What's stopping me from having what I really, really want? And write down all the reasons. That's a really amazing starting point, again, in the absence of a coach, to start to really look at how your thinking, your beliefs are affecting the decisions you're making. So journaling is an amazing process for a little bit of self-reflection. And then when you come back to your journal, even a little bit of self-coaching.
You've touched on journaling a fair bit today, and every time that we've spoke. I know you've launched your own journaling engine app for people to journal. When it comes to journaling, how do you have to refer back to your journal entries? I mean, I'm not a journaler, and I'm going to start. I'm going to. But what is, after you journal, do you go back and refer to those entries, and how far do you go back, and how often, and why?
So first of all, the question is, how do you journal? So there are lots of different ways to journal, right? So what is journaling for? Sure, it can be a capture of what's going on for you right now. That's a good starting point. But journaling has so many more uses. So if you're frustrated with something, you can examine why you're frustrated. What led you to feel frustrated? Where you keep getting frustrated, maybe with different people, but it's the same scenario over and over again. So it's a learning device. It's a place where you can definitely go back and see your patterns. So you do want to go back at times to say, man, I keep feeling frustrated. How long has this been going on for? Let me go back and look. But journaling can also serve other purposes. It's a brainstorming tool. It's a place where you can imagine anything is possible. It's a place where you can unload some, you know, heavy emotional feelings and literally use your journal to take you to a different emotional state. to help you feel better. It's a place where you can solve problems. It's a place where you can make decisions. So journaling is a very, very powerful tool. And yes, periodically you can go back to see where you were before and how far you've come, or perhaps where you were before and how come you're still struggling with the same issue so many years later.
Wow, that's really powerful stuff, Kim. So what's next for you in your career? What's next for Frame of Mind Coaching? How do you take it to the next level?
Yeah, so right now we continue to coach people. We continue to coach executives. We've just launched a group coaching program for people who want to be in a group environment and who want to get coached by me. Lately, I haven't been coaching a lot of people one-on-one because I haven't been here, but now we have launched this group coaching experience and it's been amazing so far. People are journaling. We have calls once a month. And to be honest, as things move forward, we're going to be exposing a lot more people to journaling and inviting them to experience what's called Journal Engine, the journal that talks back, which allows people to journal and receive feedback from someone who's really qualified to respond. So we're doing all kinds of things. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
I find the journaling is a very personal thing. No matter what, my daughter journals every day and she doesn't let us read her journal. But you said something that your journaling engine provides feedback from somebody else. Journal engine, I apologize. What has been the response from people journaling that when they're getting their feedback? It's either they want the feedback or they don't want the feedback. How does that work? How do you decide if they want feedback, and how do you handle those questions?
So they decide whether or not they want feedback. So in other words, they journal and they get to choose whether or not they just want to journal privately or they are looking for feedback. So it's up to them. They get to decide.
So I get emails all the time because I'm on the platform. When somebody does another journal entry, I get an email saying that so-and-so made a journal entry, log in to see the entry. And so everybody can see it. Is that right? Like everybody
if they choose that, right? If they choose for everybody to see, right? So it's up to the journaler. If they're willing to share, they do. If they don't want to share, then you wouldn't get that email.
And if I wanted to share my journal entry with the community, who's going to provide the feedback? One of your coaches or anybody, everybody, all of the above?
Whoever is inspired to respond to you. So it could be another coach, it could be another community member, it could be me. If you were to journal though, I would definitely respond.
I'm not sure I would allow the feedback, because you're talking about deep, dark, intimate, not necessarily secrets, but emotions, things that are going on. And somebody, myself included, has a lot of fear towards making those comments. They're not public, but they're public to the community.
I will tell you though, that when you write and somebody reads and responds to your journal, like I cannot tell you how, like what a great feeling it is to know that there's somebody on the other end who captures you, who catches you in a really safe, loving, positive, supportive way. It's magical, right? Like it's just incredible to know that there are people out there who are interested, who want to know what you have to say, who care enough to ask a question and to be curious and interested in you, your life, your experiences, your emotions, your thoughts. It's actually incredible.
I have one more question. At what age should somebody be looking to hire a coach? Is there a specific age or a time in their lives where they would be looking specifically for a coach?
So it's super interesting that you asked this question because recently, like in the past year or so, we've actually coached a lot of people who are in their early 20s. And that was not historically our target market, right? We coach executives, we coach business owners, but now we see that our clients are coming to us and saying, can you coach my daughter, my son, whoever?
And when they're coming in looking for, for you to coach their son or their daughter or whatever, what are the biggest or the most common reasons for a parent wanting their child to start working with a coach?
Well, it comes from a number of places. Place number one is they want a better relationship with their child. Place number two is they see their child perhaps struggling, suffering, toiling, right, on their own. And they do not know how to offer support and help. Number three is they see this incredible potential in their child that is not being, uh, allowed to bloom or isn't channeled in a proper way, right? So there are all those elements at play. And then obviously you have a child who says, yes, I want this. I want to be supported. I want to explore. I want to do that self-reflection. I want to reach my goals and I want to do it in a way where I feel supported. Yes, I want this. And what's really interesting is there's also a conversation about what's the difference between therapy and coaching. Whereas young people this age may not want therapy so much, but they are much more open to coaching because, we come from the perspective that we're not here to fix somebody who's broken. You're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you. Let's help you clear some of the rubbish out of the way so that you can be free to fly and reach your goals.
Amazing. The reason I ask is in our community, the John Maxwell community, April is Global Youth Initiative Month. And we spend a great deal of time working with the youth in the communities across the world. And I see this as a real area of growth. Kids are not in school today. My kids are at home. We're doing some at-home learning. Self-learning is a $355 million a day business, and it's only going north from there. And the final question that I wanted to ask you is, where do you see, what are the only unlimited resource in life is human potential, okay? And the most important thing is getting people to look inside at their own potential and drawing that out of them. I'm actually making a statement more than asking you a question. I want to know, when it comes to coaching certifications, would it be beneficial for a coach to have a second or third or fourth or fifth certification process? And all of this to say, what would be the benefit of a coach who's certified from another certification process to come in and take the frame of mind certification process?
So it really depends what your goals are, right? If your goal is to add another, I don't want to even say another. I think that frame of mind coaching comes at it from a very unique perspective. So if you tap into that perspective and you say, yes, that resonates for me, and it adds something really valuable to my existing, not only skill set, but perspective, add something very valuable to my framework, then yes, come in and do it. But I would say this, is that whenever I have conversations with people who are interested in coaching, right? I say, well, the first and most important starting point is to go through coaching yourself, is to have an extraordinary experience. And I think especially coaches need coaches. So if you are a coach and you are looking for a coach, because in my opinion, how can you not? You believe in this field, you believe in the value of coaching, every coach should have a coach. Then look at frame of mind coaching as a service provider for you as a coach, and then determine whether or not you should go through certification. But first get coached and see if, frame of mind coaching is the right fit for you, for yourself as an individual, first and foremost.
That's a great answer. And to be honest, I didn't go looking for coaching. Coaching found me. And I think that was the most eye-opening experience for me, was how it found me. And I started the certification process down one path, and the coaching path opened up right in front of my eyes, and I jumped at it. And I truly believe that it was the experience and the transformation that I experienced in that moment, which led me to want to be a more effective coach and to get my message out to the world and start helping people live their best lives. And I believe you feel the same way.
Yes, so I'm going to turn the tables back around. What is your message? What is the message that you want to get out to the world?
Wow, I wasn't expecting that. My message that I want to get out to the world is that you just have to keep showing up. You know, you said it earlier, an event is an event. It's neither positive nor negative. It's an event. And how you think of that event, it determines whether it's positive or negative. And you talk about going to a movie, going to a sporting event, not that we're doing that anytime soon, but you know, you could have 15,000 people at an event and 15,000 different opinions as to how that event went. So most people in my community believe that they're not enough, and they have tons of these BS, this belief system that are their limiting beliefs. And my message to the world is that you are enough, and that you've been gifted with everything inside of you that you need to be great. And if you haven't been able to figure it out on your own, then you need to connect with a professional coach that will help you bring it out for you. You know, life isn't what's done to you, it's what's being done for you. And I think that's a real switch that people haven't really given it too much thought. So all that to say, my message is to the world is that you are enough. You have all the gifts that you need, and you need to start sharing your experiences with the world.
So there you go. That is your first little opening to your future as a public speaker, a podcast host, and everything else. I want to say to you, thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for taking the time to turn the tables. But I'm super excited about your future and what happens in your life as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as definitely a leader in your field. I can't wait to see what happens. But thank you, Jarrod, for spending this time with me.
Thank you, Kim. And please keep inspiring the rest of this world. We need you. Thank you very much.